400 years ago, deep in the hills of central India, sat a beautiful village called Berampur. It looked entirely peaceful from the outside, but beneath the canopy of trees, the locals lived by a strict, terrifying rule. Every Saturday night, they locked their doors and stayed out of sight. Local folklore warned of the Nishir Molo, 4 shadowy figures who walked the dirt paths carrying a coffin on their shoulders. The rule was simple. If you heard their footsteps, you hid, because if you looked at them, you died. A young man named Madan decided to test that rule. Ignoring his father's desperate warnings to stay inside, he laughed off the old stories, grabbed his lantern, and stepped into the darkness to meet his friends. To save time, he took a shortcut. This claustrophobic path led deep into the overgrown woods. The moonlight vanished behind the clouds, and then he heard it. Heavy, synchronized footsteps, and a deep, rhythmic chant echoing through the trees. Bom Bom Bas. Panic took over. Madan dove into the nearby bushes, holding his breath as the 4 men and their heavy wooden coffin passed by. He waited until the chanting faded. He thought he was safe. He stepped out onto the path, let out a sigh of relief, and turned around, only to find the 4 men standing inches away, their glowing red eyes locked directly on his. The next morning, a search party found Madan near an ancient banyan tree. He was dead, his face frozen in absolute terror. The village curse had claimed another life, proving the legend of the coffin bearers was lethally real. 4 centuries later, a scientist named Meghna wakes up screaming in a Delhi apartment. She keeps having the exact same nightmare: a dark forest, thick fog, a tree dripping with a glowing green liquid, and a giant monstrous bird diving straight at her. She shakes it off. After all, she lives in a world of glass and concrete, miles away from ancient forests. She and her roommate Ishita work grueling hours in a high-tech laboratory. The pressure is mounting. Their supervisor, Professor Jaydev, is demanding immediate results on a complex chemical antidote they've been struggling to synthesize for months. They are completely out of modern solutions. Desperate for a breakthrough, Ishita pulls out a massive, dusty book she found. It's a collection of ancient botanical legends detailing obscure plants with unique chemical properties that modern science has forgotten. She points to one entry in particular, the Mrityunjay Amrit, or the Nectar of Immortality. According to the text, deep in the village of Berampur, there is a single sacred tree that secretes a highly potent, glowing green sap, but only on the night of a full moon. Meghna stares at the page, her blood running cold. The detailed sketch in the centuries-old book is a perfect match. It's the exact same tree, the exact same forest, and the exact same glowing liquid from her recurring nightmares. Meghna and Ishita pack for Berampur, convinced that a simple chemical harvest will solve their career crisis. Instead, they are following the precise path of a nightmare into a village that has been waiting 400 years for their return. After a 5-hour bus ride, they step off at the gates of Berampur. The second Meghna's foot touches the dirt, the weather reacts. The bright afternoon sky violently darkens, and a freezing, aggressive wind rips through the village square. The locals stop in their tracks, looking up in sheer alarm. It's the middle of a hot, dry season. This kind of sudden, chaotic storm is entirely unnatural, and everyone in the village knows it. To avoid suspicion, Meghna and Ishita introduce themselves to the village chief and his son, Anuj, claiming they are university students doing an academic study on local architecture. The chief welcomes them in. When Meghna casually asks if there's anything historically significant nearby, Anuj points them to the edge of town. There's a massive, abandoned royal palace, he says, built exactly 400 years ago. The timeline is a perfect match. Meghna's dreams, Madan's death, and the construction of the palace all point to the same era. By digging into this specific history, the 2 scientists have officially nudged a dormant curse awake. At exactly midnight, while the chief sleeps, Anuj leads the 2 women out into the dead of night. The heavy winds from the afternoon storm are still howling through the narrow, unlit alleyways. They finally reach the edge of the forest. Looming over them is the royal palace. a massive, decaying stone structure that has been locked shut for centuries. With the main doors permanently jammed, they pry open a heavy wooden shutter and squeeze through a broken window, dropping into the pitch-black, dust-covered corridors inside. Meghna shines her flashlight down the long hallway. She stops. Without looking at a map, she knows exactly which way to turn. She knows where the stairs are, and she knows where the grand hall is located. Meghna is navigating a 400-year-old labyrinth by memory alone. Her dreams have moved from the subconscious into the physical world, leading her directly toward the heart of the legend. At that exact moment, back in the village center, the local priest is praying in the temple. The sacred oil lamp, which has burned continuously for decades, flickers violently in a draft of cold air and dies. Out in the forest, the wind carries a sound that no one in Berampur has heard for centuries: heavy, marching boots, and the low, rhythmic chant, Bom Bom Bas. The entire village jolts awake in their beds. On the edge of the woods, two local Nangmenplards freeze in place. The fog rolls in thick around them. Stepping out from the tree line are four massive silhouettes, their glowing red eyes piercing through the mist, a heavy coffin resting on their shoulders. The men are too paralyzed to run. They watch in absolute horror as the wood on the coffin splinters and the lid begins to slowly creak open. The 400-year-old myth is walking the earth once again. Cut back to the palace. Meghna, Ishita, and Anuj are standing in the silent hallway when a massive, ancient wooden door at the end of the corridor slowly creaks open, entirely on its own. Something inside is waiting for them. To discover the connection between Meghna and the Nectar of Immortality, she must now step into the void. Subscribe and turn on notifications for Part 2, where we uncover the terrifying truth behind the Nishir Molo. Drop a comment below. Would you have stayed in